I don't think you can argue with this.
It's a big name to ignore.
It's close to like playing against Richie McCaw. I think we've got the most exciting wingers that the Six Nations have ever seen. I'm not having it, mate.
No, okay.
John, we picked a lot of Welshies here. Scotland fans can come at us, but never won a trophy because he's smug. We're going to get hammered. Welcome back to Hits Different, where Aki and I are going to do our ultimate Six Nations 15. Now, 25 years since the best tournament in the world became the Six Nations from the Five Nations. We've picked our own teams, which an independent adjudicator has had a look at, and it's very similar.
It's worryingly similar, isn't it? Are we spending too much time together discussing rugby?
But also there's some brilliant players.
It's not an easy task though, is it? When
Not
you start
easy
to
task.
sit down, pen and paper out, and start to think about players, there was a few that could have been in, comfortably could have been in. I'm sure we'll talk about some of them, but it's worrying to think we've picked 10 the same. Or does that just mean these players definitely deserve to be in there?
A few of them do. Now you get at us with your thoughts and your comments. It's our team. It's hypothetical. Again, we're open to be critiqued here.
Yeah, you're wrong, but we're open to it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, should we start with the big boys?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Who have you got? Who did you have for your front row?
I've gone Gethin Jenkins,
Yep.
Keith Wood,
Yeah.
and Tag Furlong. So I wanted to sort of like, I didn't just want to go more rugby that I've watched more in the last 10, 15 years. I wanted to try and get some of the old school in throughout the team as well, the old guard. So Keith Wood, for me, everybody talks about him being a game-changing hooker. There's not many like him, does a bit of everything. Gethin Jenkins was sort of that mould of a loosehead prop, I think. I think he became, he transformed from being what looseheads were to suddenly he's amazing over ball. He was in that team, in a really good Welsh team. He seems to be a real central cog of it. So, and then Furlong, we've discussed at length, where he certainly changed the way. So they're probably people who've all slightly tweaked the way that their positions have been played over the years. What have you got to come back to that? Three.
It's really hard to argue against them. Keith Wood, Irish Harlequins legend as well. Some boy. I've gone Cian Healy. He is now the all-time Irish men's players cap record holder. And now he's played in the Six Nations more than any other Irish player as well, overtaking Brian O'Driscoll in both. And he's still playing now, which is incredible. So I've gone Cian Healy, and he's still playing in one of the best teams in the world. So I went for Cian Healy. I've gone his old mate Rory Best at hooker, and I've gone for Adam Jones, our guy who sat here not long ago, who, if you think about the Six Nations and Wales, I think you see Adam's hair. So we're three different there.
Yeah, we are, yeah. I'd be willing to forgo Tag Furlong for Adam Jones because he's a friend of the show.
Yeah.
If I feel like Keith Wood is
Keith?
more iconic for me than Rory Best. That sounds brutal because they're two legendary Irish hookers, but I feel like as a Quins man, you should probably want Keith Wood
I
in
should.
as well.
I really like Keith.
Yeah.
I admire him. He's a wonderful human being.
You want
Brilliant
Rory
rugby
Best,
player.
don't you? You want...
My only thing, it's just the fact that the Six Nations, I think Keith Wood retired 03 maybe.
Yeah. So in our time frame, we're talking.
I would just went durability. Rory Best, I think, won 4 titles. I think I could be wrong.
Do you know what? Within that time frame, then, yeah, I'd be willing to accept that.
So we've gone to and fro there.
Yep.
Are you happy to take Rory Best?
I am. I like the argument for his longevity within that time frame. So Rory Best is in, which means I'm probably going to try and really shoehorn Gethin Jenkins in more than ever now.
I like it.
Ahead of... Do you know what I'd say about Gethin Jenkins as well? He sort of was just a first choice right throughout.
Yeah.
He was never... He stayed in that Welsh team religiously. So
Nothing wrong with being off the bench.
there's not. You can get a lot.
You can make a career out of that.
You can get 100 of them, people could say.
You can. Okay, so we're going to go Gethin Jenkins, Rory Best, Adam Jones.
Good. It's good, isn't it?
Good tourists as well.
I think you're right. I like this iconic piece of the Six Nations.
That's just because it's such an iconic tournament. I think we have to think longevity, which I think in our second rowers, I don't think you can argue with this.
No. Do you know, I started to lean towards, and we've discussed it before, I started to lean towards England's current captain. Yeah. He was in my question mark as the durability piece as well of being the last, what's he probably played, 7 or 8 years of consistently probably every Six Nations game. And and then I was trying to pull in some threads of Scottish players, etc. But it's hard to look beyond these two, isn't it?
I think it's Alan Wynne-Jones and Paul O'Connell. I don't think you can argue with that back home. People might be shouting Martin Johnson, but again, I think Jono maybe only won one trophy in the Six Nations before he retired.
Yeah,
Palouse.
That's a big shout, isn't it? I wouldn't know the era that he retired in, but it's a big name to ignore. Might make you number 19 on the bench.
He might be. Yeah, well done, Fabian. But we're going to go with Alan Wynne-Jones and Paul O'Connell.
Hard to look beyond them two, isn't it? What they both gave and what they both, we don't probably know enough about second row play. Are they comfortable playing together? Who knows? But they're in our team, aren't they?
They are now. Yeah. Big Al and Paul. This is where we weirdly went very similar.
Yes. I thought, I'm almost disappointed. I thought I'd gone a bit off piece with my 6.
Yeah.
And then I've seen yours as we're clearly very the same, aren't we? So Dusautoir was in an era though where we would have been watching, you'd have played against him quite a few times as well. And he was that person for the French for a while, wasn't he? He was the man. Like we talk about Dupont at the moment, he was the go-to man, wasn't he?
Yeah. Wonderful rugby player. Tough, hard to play against, great leader, tackling, running threat. Thierry Dusautoir in that French team, I think, was always like one of their best players. So he's played 6 for us.
He was in for both of us, wasn't he, comfortably?
He was. And so was our 7.
Yeah. Again, a man who, I don't know how many caps he ended up with, but he probably got cut short a little bit, didn't he, by injury? But when Warburton played, it seemed like for a number of years he was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
Or consistently playing brilliantly for that Welsh team.
Nightmare to play against. As close to, it's probably a big shout, as close to like playing against Richie McCaw, for that guy that around the breakdown was just a nightmare and would get on the right side of the referee.
Yeah.
Really legend of a bloke as well, which I think helped with referees, his rapport with referees, but his skill level, ability to slow the other team down.
Yeah. Seems to just accept like his job was that. His
Yeah.
job, he was very, very comfortable in what his role was every game, and he was, impressive player.
So he's our 7th, and then the number 8. This is where we differed.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like you've shoehorned some Italians in, which is good. It's good for you. You've shoehorned an Italian in, and I went with someone who I think would have been exactly what most teams would want now. If I'm looking at like what would you add in, any team in the world would probably want to add in someone like a Delalio to their setup. And I know he'd have probably played 5 years at the start. Did he retire 2007 time, 2008?
Yeah.
So he'd have probably played the first 5-6 tournaments. And I know England went through a bit of a ropey patch just after they won the World Cup, didn't they, for a few years? But him as a character, probably epitomised everything about that era of rugby. But on the flip side...
Well, I went Sergio Parise purely because longevity and how well he played in a team that most often than not lost rugby matches. But you would still look at the game and go, he's probably the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
So I loved playing against him, loved watching him in an Italy shirt. But I'd happily take Big Lol because I think we're going to need someone with connections on a night out for this group.
You might see him at a game soon, and I feel a bit awkward if you doing a game with him, and then all of a sudden you've said I've picked Parise ahead of you.
No, that's absolutely fine.
He's not the type of man you want to say that to, is he?
I think we need Big Lol leading the charge for us on and off the field.
This team wins at home at Twickenham, and then he's your man to...
He's absolutely the man for after.
He's walking people into places, isn't he? So
he is. Delalio's in for us. That is the forward pack.
Do you think, it's a tough one for you to say, as a man who's played numerous times in this competition, was 9 the easiest one for you to pick? Is that where we're at with this bloke? Or after Saturday, did we see some fragility in his game?
I think what Antoine Dupont has done in his... Still, you're so young. What he's done already in his career, I'll say it again, no one's done it like he's done it consistently week in, week out as a scrum half. Like he's set the bar so high. There's so many other people that you could throw in. Youngs, Phillips, Conor Murray, lads that have been there for 10, 12 years, won numerous titles. However, I think when you boil it all down, Antoine Dupont is is a better player than anyone else that's tried to play 9 potentially ever in the world. And I can only speak from the last 38 years that I've been alive, of me watching rugby. I've never seen a 9 do it as well as Antoine Dupont's done it.
So we've established that as a relatively. When you said the iconic, I still think a lot of Six Nations as that Welsh team. So Mike Phillips was the only one to me that I'd look at and go, he had big moments, didn't he? In this particular competition, not just saying him but big moments in this in the Six Nations. But it's hard to argue with.
I have no doubt that if you ask Mike Phillips who's better,
He would say Mike
Phillips. I have no doubt, and I love that about him.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But I think
we're not going to give it to him.
No, we're going to give it to Dupont.
But Mike, if you want to come on and argue your case,
great tourist.
Yeah,
I think he's in the 21 jersey for me.
Yeah. Let's do that. If we're doing a match day 23, he'd be in, wouldn't he?
He's in the 21 jersey.
Again, he'd be some good connections on nights out, wouldn't he?
Absolutely, he would do well. He would do well. 10. Now, I'll throw you my first one that I thought of when it first came to my head of players I loved watching in the Six Nations was Freddie Michalak.
Wow.
Like, magician, what he could do with a rugby ball, play with a smile on his face, always attacking, trying
socks just ever so slightly down.
Looked great, smelt great.
Just
wonderful
kicked off
player.
a plastic cone
Wonderful.
quite a lot of the time, didn't he? Just looked like he didn't really care whether he was going to knock it over, but knocked it over anyway.
Yeah.
Stylish, wasn't he?
Really cool.
Great in a magazine shot.
Would look good in a magazine shot.
He's done a few of them, hasn't he? A few naked ones.
He has. But I think you can't really argue with the guy I think that we're both put down.
Again, someone who he's quite iconic in everything he's done with England, but Six Nations for him, he seemed like that became his bread and butter, didn't it?
Are you doing his kicking technique?
I didn't mean to, but they managed it straight away. That's what came over me straight away when I started to think about him. It's hard to go against Wilkinson, isn't it?
Johnny Wilkinson is our fly half. Him and Dupont would have worked well together, wouldn't they? And Johnny spoke French.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at us just
do anything.
Huge. Okay, wingers. Did we go the same here?
We did, yeah. We could maybe discuss a few that haven't made the team, and then dive into those that. So I think there's been a few notable mentions. I think I think our friend Johnny May's probably been one of those performers in against Six Nations. Big tries that he scored over the years. Name would have to be mentioned, but
Tommy Bowe was close for me.
Yep, scored another brilliant player, potentially slightly underrated player in there.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Brilliant player, yeah. I like Tommy Bowe a lot, but we've actually gone for two wingers who were essentially the same player, just playing for different countries, weren't they?
Yeah. That people might look at this and go, we should have gone one slightly larger winger with a smaller one, but I think we've got the most exciting wingers that the Six Nations have ever seen.
Which of them two would you even dream of leaving? If you had to put in a big lad.
Nah, I couldn't.
Do you know the only person, and he's had a few mentions on this show already, but I think Duhan van der Merwe's getting to that stage
against England.
He's very good against England, isn't he? He's getting to the stage of being in the conversation for me of the other extreme to these boys.
Is he?
And he comes up with big moments in the Six Nations. You're not sure? You're not having it?
I'm not having it, mate.
No, okay. Not in that.
You can't put him in the same.
Not in this bracket. No. But Shane Williams, Jason Robinson, if you tried to shoehorn one out, there's no way of splitting them, is there?
No. Those two would get people off their seats. And when you look back at famous Six Nations matches, they're the boys with the ball doing things that only a very few people in the world can do, which I love about them. That's
a lovely combination, isn't it? And then we had different fullbacks, so did we not?
We had the same fullback in Rob Kearney. Now, I think I think Mike Brown deserves a massive mention in this.
Do you know what Mike Brown actually, not just because he's come on the show before, Brown was written down next to Rob Kearney for me. I think Lee Byrne would also have been in this conversation.
Lee Halfpenny as well.
Lee Halfpenny. The thing that...
Some good ones.
And I was basically doing it based on, the first time I tried to pick my team of having two little wingers, I wanted the most secure person I've ever seen under a high ball was my reasoning. And you probably don't need to have the most exciting fullback. It's not to do him a disservice, but with them two wingers, Rob Kearney for me was the perfect balance.
Yeah, he was so hard to play against, Rob Kearney. You'd think there's backfield space, you'd go to kick the ball, and by the time you'd done that, he's filled the space, and he would make you look very silly. Real skillful, tough, great under the high ball, won a load of titles.
Yeah.
Rob Kearney's our 15.
They're in, yeah. Which leaves us senses where we did have a discussion, don't we? We've got, I think, our 13. Which also, the 13 needs to be discussed as well, because it wasn't as easy for me as just saying, the obvious one would be O'Driscoll, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Davis in that role for Wales for a long time, not in the same manner as O'Driscoll, but
yeah.
there was a conversation. And then I very selfishly put in who I've loved my whole career. So Yannick Josion was just, I think, he was everything I liked as a set. Being, again... Long,
you similar stature?
Long,
to
tall,
Yannick?
Tall, sort of rangy, and he was a very, very special player. And another one that I think would probably go under the radar a little bit for people. So
yeah,
he's made my team, but
I went a similar stature, and another Welshman. Joe, we picked a lot of Welshies here. I went Jamie Roberts, because I think in that golden generation of Welsh talent, I think if you didn't have Jamie Roberts, I don't think the whole thing worked, because you just had that guy to give you gain line every single time for then Shane Williams and his boys to go and run the magic out wide. So that's why I went with Jamie, but I am conscious that we picked a lot of Welsh people in this.
Do you know what? The other thing I'd give someone like Jamie Roberts is, he gets, now people go like, oh, he couldn't do this or this. But for that period of what rugby was in that period, he was just brilliant, wasn't he?
Unbelievable.
And so it doesn't matter if maybe he would now not be this ball player or not be this, because in that period where that's what they need him to do, he was just incredible.
Yeah. So who are we going for? You want
Yannick? Is it too many Welshies though? Is it?
Currently,
there's a lot of Welsh.
Mark, we have only 3 Englishmen, so no one can.
No, we can't. We're normally critiqued for our English bias, aren't we?
3 Englishmen, 6 Welshmen, 2 Frenchmen, 4 Irish, 0 Scots, and 0 Italians. But I ain't having it. No, Scotland fans can come at us, but never won a trophy. So
it's not happening. No, it's not.
Haven't won the Six Nations yet.
Put below who you would have in from Scottish and Italians, and we'll argue.
The honourable mention to Finn Russell, I would say that if he starts winning Scotland trophies, I think he's right up there. Yep. But at the moment, not having it. So we need to decide, mate. Josion or Jamie Roberts. It's your expertise. It's you're the 12.
I'm a huge Josion fan. I think, well, like you said, if you're thinking Six Nations, that Welsh team was, for a long time, it was brilliant, wasn't it? But
because I know if Jamie, and we're going to try and get Jamie on the show soon, I know what he'll say. He'll say,
he should have been.
How many trophies is Yannick won?
Yeah, and it's a fair argument, isn't it?
Because he's smug. But it is a fair argument.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair argument, yeah. Well, let's put him in on the premise that he's coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'd say so.
Yeah, Jamie's in, and Josion, we don't know Yannick, so he's probably not coming on. So.
Well, you never know, he might.
But he might come on and defend it.
Maybe. I mean, do you know what I'm thinking now? There's been some unbelievable French wingers as well. I'm thinking Vincent Clerc.
Oh, yeah. This is where I think the abuseful role.
Mate, we're gonna get hammered.
Damien Try, there'll be a lot of. There's a lot that are going to come in off the back of this. That French period. The problem is, like you touched on, that French period was quite hit and miss, wasn't it? For brilliance of the. Yeah, that's going to come back to Jamie Roberts' argument. How many trophies?
I had Dimitri Ashvili on my 9.
You can hear him saying it, can't you? How many have they won?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's our team. So we're going to go through it.
We like it.
1 to 15. Our ultimate Six Nations 15. Since the Six Nations became the Six Nations in 2000, we've gone for Gethin Jenkins, Rory Best, Adam Jones, Alan Wynne-Jones, Paul O'Connell, Thierry Dusautoir, Sam Warburton, Lawrence Dallaglio is our forward pack. Our backs, Antoine Dupont, Johnny Wilkinson, Shane Williams, Jamie Roberts, Brian O'Driscoll. For me, the best player to ever play in the Six Nations. Just saying. Jason Robinson and Rob Kearney. So that's our team.
Yep.
Every good team needs a coach. Who is the coach from the Six Nations era who's going to coach that side to greatness?
I find myself, it's hard to say this because of the current situation, but we've got 6 Welsh lads in there.
We have.
And who do they all get coached by?
Yeah, it's Mr. Warren G.
Yeah.
Regulators. No, sorry.
It's hard to look beyond it, really, isn't it?
I think Warren Gatland is the greatest coach in the Six Nations because of his record. I think Eddie's not far behind with his record, but I think if you go an out and out trophies and the ability to galvanise a team, the amount of Grand Slams they won, the amount of titles, I think it has to be Warren Gatland.
Yeah, and firing with some more abuse, I think, off the back of that
Absolutely.
one. Just that's over the 25
That's
years.
over 25
yes.
years. That's
Again,
not now. That's
longevity.
over 25 years.
Yeah. Enjoyed it. It's a good team.
There we go. Check it out.